want to let you know that at the end of this webinar, we're going to have, at least 10 or 15 minutes for a question and answer. So as we're going through all of this, please either drop your questions into the chat box and I'll go through those at the very end, read them out loud and answer them, or just kind of jot them down, remember them. And then at the very end of the webinar, I will actually take you all off mute and we can go ahead and actually talk and answer those questions. So what to expect for this webinar, I think that my part of this presentation will probably be a quick little introduction. I have a PowerPoint prepared for kind of the agenda and the intro part, and then the live demo will probably just be about 10 or another 15 minutes. It'll be fairly short and to the point. I've done my best to hopefully make this interesting and not, too drawn out and boring for you all. So yes, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to turn off my camera for just the remainder of this presentation part to make sure we can get a super clear screen share together. Perfect. Okay, and if for whatever reason there seems to be any technical problems, you can't hear me, or you're not able to see my screen, just go ahead and drop that into the chat. But we should be good to go. But I do always like to kind of preface that just in case something is going wrong that I'm not aware of. So for today's webinar, what we're going to be focusing on is how individuals can succeed with priority matrix. So the title we have is the Individual Contributors Scorecard for Success. And so that is exactly what we're going to be focusing on today. So what are challenges faced by an individual contributor? A little bit of background for this is I've been with Priority Matrix for almost 6 years now. And during those 6 years, I've spent the majority of my career here actually talking to our new customers, our current users, and, really learning inside and out what our user base looks like. And I recently kind of played with some numbers, and we came to understand that about 75% of our users are actually individuals kind of using it by themselves. So when I found out the information, I thought, okay, well, I really need to put something together specifically for those individual users because, those are the people that often have more on their plate than anybody else, more deadlines to hit. And honestly, it can be incredibly challenging to keep all of that information organized without a system to help you do that. So what do the challenges look like that I've personally seen that the individual contributor can face? These include input from multiple directions. So likely you have managers emailing you, calling you, sending you Teams updates, kind of giving you input on new deadlines, new things you need to be working on. And with all of that streamlining in from different places, it's really challenging to keep track of that. With that being said, when something changes, unless you have a system that allows you to very easily modify what you need to be working on, again, it can be hard to keep track of those updating and changing responsibilities. Additionally, I've seen individual contributors get absolutely swamped with emails. And again, without priority matrix, people kind of fall back to leaving emails unread or maybe flagging them to try and keep track of them. But at the end of the day, they slip through the cracks. There's no real way to prioritize those emails, which is really the most effective way to keep track of all of them. And lastly, it's difficult to keep track of, understanding, hey, what do I need to work on right now? What do I have to do today? What are the next things I need to work on? And what are my personal ideas and just kind of thoughts that I need to keep track of to ensure that I successfully complete all of these tasks? So as you can see, the individual contributor has a lot of responsibilities. They have a lot on their plate and people expect a lot out of them. But again, it can be challenging to accomplish all this without a great system in place like Priority Matrix. And bear with me while I continue to say individual contributor because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. So if I stutter over my words there, we'll get through it together. All right, perfect. So I want you all to understand that Priority Matrix is here for you. The application is here to make your day easier, and our support and sales executives, just like myself, are going to be here to kind of help you through it every step of the way. So Why do we have so many users that are individual contributors, and how does Priority Matrix help them? Number one, it makes it super easy to track your new priorities, whether it's coming through meetings or phone calls or emails, very easily to get those prioritized. And you can also very easily reference back and see your completed ones. Review what you finished last week. Use that information to help you plan for your next priorities. Priority Matrix works as a little history and audit trail for you. So it's super easy to keep track of all these moving parts. We also have an integration with Outlook 365, which we're definitely going to look at today. And it's going to help you keep track of all those incoming emails from your team, your management, those clients you're working with. And we're going to show you how you can very easily prioritize all of them. I'm going to show you how you can effectively set up your projects and kind of group similar priorities together and why Priority Matrix makes that so easy. And we're also going to look at notifications. So you don't have to worry about remembering everything you have to get done. Priority Matrix is going to work as your own little personal assistant and notify you when you need to shift gears and start working on something new. So when you start using Priority Matrix, you're able to actually continue working in the platforms you already know and trust. So if your organization is Office 365 focused, if you're working in Teams and Outlook 365 already, the great news is you're going to be able to integrate Priority Matrix right into there and keep working in those systems. If you're not looking to use Priority Matrix through Office 365, that's awesome as well. You're able to download the desktop application for Mac and Windows. Also on your mobile device, you can use the mobile app, or we also have a web application available for desktop and mobile. So as you can see, there's actually a lot of different places that you can be using Priority Matrix. And in fact, we encourage you to use it on multiple platforms. If you want to try it out on all these different places and continue using it there, by all means, be our guest. Go ahead and do that. It can actually be one of the most effective ways to use Priority Matrix. I also want you all to know that they're going to sync automatically, so you don't have to worry about your data mismatching or, updating it in multiple places. So with all this being said, with kind of that quick introduction about how individual contributors are succeeding with Priority Matrix, let's look at how you can actually get started. So we just talked about where you can actually download Priority Matrix and use it on. So that's definitely going to be the first step. That's going to prompt you to start your free trial, which will allow you to test it out without any limitations for the first 2 weeks. During that time, we definitely suggest attending as many webinars as you feel would be helpful for you. In the month of February, I think I'm hosting, maybe about 10 webinars, all about very unique use cases. And in fact, some of those are just going to be kind of basic introductions for kind of the new users here. And we also encourage you to try and stick to your new process. I've seen a lot of potential success across, pretty much everybody who starts using Priority Matrix, but the most challenging part is kind of adopting this new process and, building it into your day-to-day without giving up and kind of referencing back to those old processes that you were working in previously that weren't working for you. So stick to it. Just know we're going to be here to help you every single step of the way. So for today's live demo, I'm going to first and foremost just give you a quick overview of the Priority Matrix kind of foundation, walk you through what's on my screen and how you can, kind of understand the basics of it. I'm going to show you how you can very easily manage your priorities and manage your emails. We're going to look at how you can review your current and upcoming priorities. Resource management, so kind of balancing all those different things you need to work on. And then lastly, like I said, we're going to have plenty of time for that Q&A at the end. So very shortly here, we're going to be looking at actually the live demo. I'm going to pull up my Priority Matrix, but just to kind of preface the use case that we'll be looking at today. So like I said, we support users across all different verticals, all different organizations. And when it comes to the individual contributor, there's a lot of different, types of roles that benefit from priority matrix. I wanted to kind of pick a specific use case for us to focus on today, just so we can kind of see it through the same lens together. And I wanted to walk us through a day in the life of a content writer. These content writers most definitely have a whole lot on their plate, and most of the time they're just kind of working by themselves. And so I thought that this would be, a comfortable way to kind of look at priority matrix through the lens of a relatable individual contributor. So let me go ahead and pull up my PM here, and we'll transition to the live demo. So again, thank you all for, kind of sticking with me through that introduction. The next 10 or 15 minutes or so, we'll be looking at priority matrix kind of more in this live demo, and then we'll do the Q&A at the very end. So what are we looking at here? This is my priority matrix, and I do have it integrated directly into my Teams platform. So again, you don't have to use it here. It's a great place to use it if you're already kind of engulfed in that office environment. What we're looking at here on my screen are different projects. And I really want to make sure I can specify this for everybody on the meeting today, because a lot of the times when I say projects, especially when I'm talking to the audience of our individual contributors, it can be a little bit of, it can be a little off-putting. And I can relate to this 1000% when I say the word projects, because when I look at how I personally use priority matrix, I don't really have, you know, specific projects that I'm working on. It's more so just groups of similar priorities. Same goes for how a content writer may be using priority matrix. It's going to be a little bit different than like the construction industry or a project manager, where they have very set in stone projects. I want you all to understand that my terminology of project should not be something that scares you away. Just think of it as grouping your similar priorities together, but what we're going to call those are projects. So hopefully that kind of helps shake out any fear that you might have when I say projects, because I definitely don't want to scare anybody away when I say that. In terms of getting started as an individual contributor, in this example, I always suggest number one, setting up a project for those important emails. I would say, if anything, that's going to be the easiest way to get started, and, definitely one of the most important things that we need to keep track of at this day and age is all those emails coming in. So create that project by hitting add project and title it something along the lines of important emails. However you personally want to name it is fine. I would also say think about, 3 or 4 different groups of similar priorities you're working on and create projects to represent those groups of tasks. In this case, again, through the lens of the content writer, I've created a space for current blog content we might be working on, old content that we definitely want to keep track of. Maybe we want to circle back to it, and a new project that we're working on, which would be interviewing all these different salespeople and understanding how they feel about working from home. Again, as the individual contributor, these are all things that this person would be responsible for. And it's super important to have this one location to track all these moving parts and all these priorities that we need to work on as an individual contributor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to open up one of these projects to kind of show you what it looks like inside of here. So within each project, we allow you to use the 4 quadrants to very easily prioritize or just kind of group together, what you need to get done. So again, through the lens of this content writer, it's very easy to see, okay, here's what I'm ready to post. Here's what I've already posted on my blogs. We need to check the stats for it, kind of so on and so forth. So I definitely want you all to understand that you can rename these quadrants. So again, like I said, individual contributors come in all different roles. I'm a salesperson, and I consider myself definitely an individual contributor, and my projects look a whole lot different than this one. Yours will likely look different as well, unless maybe we do have content writers on here today, and that would be awesome. It would definitely be giving them kind of a leg up on how to get started here. But again, keep in mind you can rename these quadrants to be the perfect fit for how you want to prioritize your items. It's very easy to move them around, reprioritize when needed. And the great part about using Priority Matrix kind of alone is you're in charge of all of this. So if something needs to be adjusted, by all means get in there and change that up, because this is totally here for your prioritization, not intending to help anybody else except yourself. Within each item, when you're using this as a single user, a couple things to be very aware of. You're going to be able to set your due dates. This is going to be part of kind of that notification system I said we would look at. So that allows Priority Matrix to remind you when you need to work on something or when a due date occurs. You can also use our reminder system. Again, this is just kind of a way to set yourself up for success so you're not going to forget about any of these items that you need to work on. There's a couple other things on the screen here, but I don't really want you to focus on them too much, because using due dates and reminders as an individual contributor are definitely going to be the most effective kind of part of this interface over here. So, focus on that when you're getting started. Don't worry about looking too much into anything else here on the screen. So again, these projects are for the individual contributor, that space where you're able to easily track all of your priorities and create new tasks as needed. We'll just say new task due in 3 hours, for example, just so you can see how quick and how easy it is to add these action items. In terms of email management, so at the very start of this webinar, I mentioned we do have an integration with Outlook 365. I'm going to pull my screen over here for us all to kind of look at together. Here is my Outlook for Mac. It's the Outlook integration is going to work for the Windows desktop app, Outlook web application, and even Outlook on your phone as well. So be sure again to install it on any and all platforms you would like to use this on. All right, so what do we have here on my screen? So you would actually just open up the email that you want to prioritize. Once you get the Outlook integration installed, you can just click Send to Project. Here you're going to see all of your projects come up. We're going to put this in important emails, and I'm actually going to rename this and call it, we're going to call it Email for Webinar, just so we can all find this together super easily. You can prioritize it into the correct quadrant. And again, I'm a big advocate for setting due dates for basically everything, because that's when you're allowing Priority Matrix to do its job and clearly see what is due today and what can wait a little bit longer. So as you can see, it's very easy to just kind of buzz through your emails, quickly prioritize everything. And then when we get back into Microsoft Teams, here's the email that I just integrated in that example. So if you kind of take a step back and you think about your inbox, it most likely feels overwhelming. You probably have a bunch of unread emails, and honestly, you might not know what you need to get around to first. So take a second when you first install Priority Matrix to go through those top priority emails, put them into a project where now I can say, okay, here's everything I need to read, soon-ish things happen. It can get pushed back a little bit, but top priority. Things to keep in mind: emails with an action needed. Maybe I need to respond or review this blog post like I was asked to do, so on and so forth. Set up these email management projects in a way that makes sense to you, that's going to help you, kind of stay on track and handle those top priority emails first. So thank you all for sticking with me. Just one or two more things that I would like to show you, and then we're actually going to open up the floor for that Q&A. So again, looking through the lens of the individual contributor, what happens when, let's say it's Friday morning, we are all super stoked for the weekend? Personally, I count down to Fridays, who doesn't love a Friday? I'm always in a great mood, always super stoked when I wake up. And I like to use Fridays as an example because, it makes people happy to think about that. So let's say Friday morning, you're ready to get started, really crank through the day and finish things that need to get done today. How does Priority Matrix help the individual contributor when that time comes? What I suggest doing is open up your Priority Matrix in Teams, and go to the home view up here and click on Agenda. What happens when we open up the Agenda view is Priority Matrix says, okay, Erica, We're looking across all of your projects, and here's everything that you said you wanted to get done today. Here's everything that you actually need to get done for the next 7 days, broken down in a really clearly visible list here. So you know what's on your plate for today and the next 7 days. If you need more context and you're like, okay, well, where did I leave off? Am I almost done with this? What's the status of it? Just simply click on it. You can modify the due date if for whatever reason, maybe it got pushed back and it's not due today anymore. Change it up as needed directly from the agenda view. What's really special about using Priority Matrix is we have our priorities to see things we need to get done today. We're also going to see our upcoming meetings. So maybe you have a meeting with a client or a stakeholder that you've been writing content for. As long as it's scheduled through Teams, so we're going to see it come up right here on our agenda. So here's the webinar we're actually in together today. Very easy to see that. When you have your emails prioritized at all, here's an example that I actually just created together here on the webinar, and we put a due date for Monday. So to kind of sum it up, what I'm trying to say is we're going to see our priorities, we're going to see our meetings, and we're going to see our emails all in one place. So for that individual contributor who has a lot on their plate, no doubt, I mean, they're kind of the foundation of a lot of organizations is, getting through a lot of important tasks and a lot of emails in a short period of time. So Priority Matrix is here to help you stay on track, help you keep everything prioritized and kind of, hopefully keep your stress at bay so you don't have to try to remember everything you need to get done and, really rack your brain to to think about all of that. Just get it into Priority Matrix and, it's really going to do all of kind of that groundwork for you. One other thing I want to say about the agenda is that you can actually add an action item here as well. So if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, well, there's something else I need to get done today, you can create a task right here, and then it will just be added to your agenda, which is definitely super helpful. So I think that kind of actually sums up the best practices that I wanted to share with you all as an individual contributor. So just to kind of sum it up super quickly, create a project for your emails, maybe 2 projects or 3 if that's how you want to break it down, and create a couple of spaces to prioritize the moving parts that you're working on. Again, in this case, we have a place for current blog posts, previous posts that we've already done and we're keeping track of, and a new research phase that we're working on. So that's kind of, current, past, and future. That's how I like to break it down as the individual contributor, but I want you all to feel comfortable to get in here and, set it up in a way that supports you as best as we can. Play around with it, modify it as needed. It's a very flexible tool, so you can always change the project names, delete things, archive, however you want to go about it. It's super flexible. And like I said, 75% of our users are actually individual contributors. So it just kind of goes to show that, honestly, maybe the system is, most powerfully designed for those individual users. If you're looking at this from the lens of being curious about how this works for a team collaboration, Priority Matrix is absolutely going to be there for you as well. Be sure to tune into my webinars next week where I kind of dive in and show you Priority Matrix through the lens of a team use case as well. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for sticking around. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here and put a couple common questions on the screen. But while I pull that up, I would like to open up the floor and ask if anybody has questions. There's a couple ways we can go about this. You're welcome to either drop your question into the chat box here, or you can actually just raise your hand. And I'm looking at the participant list here and I'll take you off mute and then you can ask those questions. And I would love to, actually chat with you if we can do that. So I'll keep an eye out on the participant list. And in the meantime, I'm going to go over a couple of common questions that, typically come up, and I like to make sure I can answer for everybody right off the bat. So a common concern is, will my team know that I'm testing Priority Matrix? not everybody, wants their team to know if they've downloaded a new solution, and that's fine. That's understandable. And the answer is no. People are not going to know if you're testing out Priority Matrix, so you kind of keep that to yourself. And as the individual contributor, it's kind of up to you to decide which system works best for you. So don't worry about that. In terms of support and training, I kind of briefly touched on this, but we have a very built out YouTube channel with dozens and dozens of current features that are listed on there with kind of short tutorials. We're constantly updating that and adding new videos as well. So that's definitely something you can rely on. I'm also hosting a bunch of upcoming webinars. I have several scheduled for February, and I'm working on booking out the next month of March. So if something comes up and you're like, I would really like a webinar on this topic, please email that to me, because most likely that's actually relevant to a lot of other people in addition to yourself. And I'm open to hearing your feedback and, setting those up based off of what our users need. There is a testing period, which is going to give you 2 weeks of unlimited access. So you can really get in there, test everything out. And then to the last question here, when that trial period ends, you are going to be asked to subscribe. We have specific licenses set up to be reasonably priced for the individual contributor, starting around $5 per month. So, we have a bunch of different licensing options. Again, we've done our best to make it reasonable for the single user to get in there, sign up, and, kind of go on their day with letting Priority Matrix support them. I don't see any questions coming up quite yet. With that being said, we do have plenty of time left for questions. So if you do think of something in the next couple minutes, just raise your hand. I'm happy to answer that for you. Before I start losing people here, please keep an eye out for my follow-up email. I'm going to be sending, number one, this recorded webinar out to all of you to watch again or to forward on to your teammates. I'm also going to send you a list of all of my upcoming webinars. So just like you did for this one, subscribe. And if you can't attend, don't worry, we're still going to send you that follow-up email with the recorded webinar. All right, Tony, it looks like we have a question from you. So I'm going to, I'm going to allow your microphone. So now, Tony, if you can just unmute yourself on your side, we'll be good to go.
Yeah, so I saw how you integrated the emails into your Microsoft 360. What would be the best way to integrate emails if you had Google accounts or something like that?
Do you mind repeating that? It kind of gave out. I heard the very first start of your question, but do you mind just repeating kind of the last part of that?
Yes. What's the best way to import emails like you did with 360 using a different email account?
Sure. And then, so my question would be, are you going to be using it through the Outlook platform, or would it be like through Gmail instead?
Gmail.
Okay. Yeah. So we do have a Gmail integration that's pretty much identical to the Office one. I don't have an example for you here today because I don't know how I feel about sharing my whole inbox on the screen, but basically you're just going to go to your Gmail and you're going to add it from the add-in section and it'll show up in your toolbar. Tony, I'll follow up with you personally and I'll send you the directions and a little screenshot of what that's going to look like for you. But yes, you are good to go. It's definitely possible through Gmail as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question. Let's see, any other questions coming up here? All right, well, I think we are all set for questions today. If anything comes up when you're testing it out, when I follow up with you, please know that's actually coming from my personal email. It's not an automated bot or anything. So feel free to just respond to that and I will be here firsthand to help you get through kind of this new process. And again, thank you all so much for tuning in here. I hope that this was at least kind of a helpful little introduction for you. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you on my next webinars. So thanks again. We're going to stop the recording here and